Hello and welcome back to Planet 40k, continuing on with our updates from our Planet 40k reviews. This time I'm going to be looking at the fast attack options within the Necron Codex. So if you haven't seen all the update videos yet, go back and start with the HQ review updates. Since then we've also done the elite updates as well as the troops and transport updates. So all the updates are due to the release of all the new books in 9th edition, so the meta has been changing. It's also nice to just have a bit of an easy listen to a summary video as opposed to a 15 to 20 minute in-depth review per unit. So if you are painting and whatnot, you shouldn't be too distracted. Whack in the comments below right now what you're painting so we can all hear it. So as you may have already noticed from some other videos recently, we've been doing random shout outs, selecting from the comments below. So maybe in the next video you'll have an unsuspected shout out. As for today's shout out, from our Praetorian review video, we've got Triarch Praetorians. Shout out to you. Hopefully I've said that correctly. Apologies if I haven't. Okay, let's get on with the video today. So we're going to be revisiting our review for each unit in the fast attack slots, maybe changing the rating, maybe not. And we're also going to be outlining a brief summary for the good and the bad of each unit. So kicking us off with the Canoptek Scarabs. I still get some hate for not adding these to the top 10 Necron unit video. I'm sorry guys, this was a mistake. I'd probably put them in the top 3, let alone the top 10. Mistakes were made. Okay, so to back up what I've just said with some evidence, all the way back in January I gave them a 4-star review. So as for the good, a cheap unit, 45 points for a min score of 3 Scarabs. Although it's not the cheapest unit in the book, that honour goes to the Cryptothralls, although Scarabs are definitely worth the extra 5 points. They've got 4 wounds per base and 4 attacks per base, so even a min unit of these is going to have 12 wounds and 12 attacks. That's going to take a lot of shooting to clear them off, which will therefore be wasting a lot of your opponent's firepower. They're virtually flat, so very easy to hide, especially within 3 inches of an objective, so they can't be shot off so quickly. They've got great synergy within the book, partly due to the Canoptek keyword, and also the Canoptek spiders, because they can keep birthing these things back each and every turn. They're fantastic to type units with, and an even greater unit to screen off from quick units coming into your backlines, or deep striking in from reserves. They also do a little bit in combat, not masses of damage. They can fly and they've also got a 10-inch movement, so they can be stealing objectives very easily, especially when you pair them with a Chronomancer for that in-1 save, and maybe the Nihilic Dynasty too for objectives secured. The best way to utilise these guys is to allow your opponent to charge them as a sacrificial screen. This wastes one of your opponent's turns so they aren't charging your bigger stuff. As for the bad, they're only weapon skill 4. They're also only strength 3, so the damage isn't fantastic. They aren't objective secured and they're obviously not core. Only toughness 3, so wounding them isn't too difficult and they're going to go down fast. But other than that, a brilliant unit that isn't about survivability, they're more about tying units up and scoring points. So I'm actually going to be bumping these up to a 4.5 rating. They should be in almost every list. Even a min unit of 3 is going to score you points within a game. On to the second fast attack option, which is the Ophydian Destroyers. They received a 3.5 star rating back in March. So on to the good, they've got speed of 10 inches, they've got the ability to tunnel up anywhere on the board more than 9 inches away from enemy models, which is quite huge on a melee based unit. We obviously don't have Terminators and that sort of stuff here, so it adds a little bit of versatility to your army. This is also good to force your opponent to screen defensively, knowing we've got some sort of deep strike ability going off. They've got tons of attack, mostly at high AP and high damage too. They can reroll hit rolls of 1. They're a -1 to be hit in melee. They link with Scorpic Lords and Locust Lords. It'd be more so the Scorpic Lords because the Locust Lords are likely to stay back. Then finally they're classed as an infantry, so they can benefit from cover. As for the bad, only toughness 4. Not toughness 5 like the other Destroyer Cult units. Only a 4 armor save too, so these things are very much like a glass hammer unit. Once they're hit, they're going to go down. They don't synergize that well with the book, apart from those Destroy Cult units, particularly because they're not core or Canoptek. They've got no in-1 save, which does hurt a little bit. I would have liked to have seen them with some sort of in-1 save to match Terminators, but it isn't meant to be. And finally, reanimating them isn't easy because they've got 3 wounds each, so it's quite unlikely that you'll get one back. So these guys I think are going to remain at a 3.5 star. They are very useful for the amount of attacks with the weapons they have. Definitely makes them better than average. As for the third option in the codex, which is the Tomb Blades. Now the review was done right at the start of the year, another unit that we gave a 3.5 star rating to. A solid unit, especially for the Mephit Dynasty, as these guys are quite a shooty unit. So as for the good, they're rapid at 14-inch range, tough as well with toughness 5. 2 wounds apiece, so they can reanimate quite well. Their main trick is the amount of firepower they produce. A full unit of 9 has either 54 particle beamer shots or potentially 36 twin Gauss blaster shots. Or if you're going Tesla, you've got 36 twin Tesla carbine shots, all hitting on 3s there. Can be 2s with My Will Be Done as their core, but it's unlikely as Overlords won't keep up. So lots of weapon options as we mentioned. They've also got a few war gear options with the Nebuloscope or the Shadow Loom and the Shield Veins. Even taking none of those options is an option because this is going to free up more points to take an additional bike in the unit. unit maybe. They've got fly, which is helpful, and then finally they're a -1 to hit at range with their offensive engrams ability. As for the bad, being core doesn't really gain much with them, as they're never likely going to be within range of the auras and buffs. And finally, shooting Necrons seem to be slowly phasing away from our game, as Games Workshop has kind of made Necrons a bit more of a melee based army now this edition, so lots of players in particular flock towards the Novak dynasty, which of course doesn't really aid a unit such as the Tomb Blades. So another unit that I think will keep their rating of 3.5. Maybe shooter units have taken a backseat in the codex. They are one of our best shooter units we have, especially at speed. Next we got the Triarch Praetorians, another 3.5 rating done in November. So a very early video from the 9th edition reviews. So for the good, they're both shooty and melee based, which is quite a rare commodity in this codex. Usually units are one or the other. Of course they're very quick, as they're a fast attack option, so they've got 10-inch movement. They're strength 5, toughness 5 as well, which is a pretty strong profile to carry. They've got weapon option, so the Rod of Covenant is probably the better way to go, but the option of the other 2 weapons is there if you need it. And as mentioned from the random shout out earlier in the video, if you're playing Death Guard, you probably should swap those rods out for the Particle Casters and the Void Blade, so that you've got damage 1 weapons, because against Death Guard you're not going to get that damage 2, it's going to go back to 1. Each model has 2 wounds, so with a 10-man unit you do have a chance of reanimating some models. You'll only get a couple back, but that's not too shabby because they're 25 points a man. They can fly, which is nice, and they're also infantry. They also synergize very well with the Silent King especially. Then finally, they've got the stratagem available to them, which allows them to hit on 2s for a phase. So that can be a big difference whether it's the shooting phase or the fight phase. As for the bad, they of course are dynastic agents, so no buffs from your dynasty codes, and no mile will be done from any of the character buffs. And they're neither a full-on range unit or a full-on melee unit, they're sort of in the middle of both. So they're just sort of okay at both. I think a better planned army would replace them with either a melee unit or a shooter unit, depending on your list. Unless of course they are a big part of your plan. Maybe you took the Silent King or Orokin the Diviner, who both interact with Praetorians. Other than those synergies, however, they don't really synergize with anything else. So these guys I'm going to bump down to a 3-star. Unless you're using the Silent King, I don't think you quite need them. In melee you've got the Canoptek Destroyers, the Wraiths, Ophydian Destroyers, and all those other units. And at range you've got your Warriors, Tomb Blades. Now they aren't damage 2, but there's lots of shots to make up for it. So on to the final unit in the fast attack slots, which is the Canoptek Wraiths. So another November review, and they received a 4-star rating. As for the good, movement of 12-inch, which is pretty quick, and they can do this through terrain and also through other models. It's almost like having fly, except they don't actually have fly. They can fall back and charge or fall back and shoot, which is quite a rare thing in the book. Only the Royal Warden or one of the command protocols can allow for that ability. They're like Praetorians, they've got a couple of weapon options for both melee and range. You're not forced to take a ranged weapon though, so you can save on points and go full on melee, which a lot of players do prefer. I like to add the Particle Casters into the mix. They've got the all-important Invuln save of a 4+ with the Wraith form, which is probably the best part of the data sheet. A rare Invuln save makes them extremely hard to shift, especially when you add this to their toughness 5. They are Canoptek, they interact with stratagems as well as a Technomancer in particular. Then finally 3 wounds each to add to all that, which is very tanky. As for the bad, like a lot of multi-wound models in the codex, they don't really reanimate that well. They've got a weapon skill value of 4, which isn't actually that bad as they gained an attack since the previous codex, so this sort of levels out. But some still class this as a bad thing, as a -1 to hit would now put them on 5s to hit, which now becomes quite tough. You'll find the damage output isn't as good as the Canoptek Destroyers or the Ophydian Destroyers. They've got much less of a punch, but they are more resilient, so it all depends on what you want to go with really. Then lastly, they're beasts. They're not infantry, so they interact slightly different with things such as terrain. So I'm on the fence whether they should be a 3.5-star or a 4-star. I'm somewhere in between, so for now I'm going to leave them at a 4-star, but let me know in the comments where you'd place them. So guys and girls, that's the updated reviews for the fast attack slots. Let me know yours below. Don't forget, I'm going to be starting to do random shout outs for people in the comments, so sub and comment below. Also like the video on your exits. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.